Pull a meal, and they ain't even have the goddamn bill on your bill.
Hello and welcome everybody out there for another episode of Factual Opinions, the only place to get the correct opinion on the state of video games. And today we are taking a look at Don't Nod Entertainment and Focus Home Interactive's latest game, Vampyr. Now, Vampyr is the latest game from French developer Don't Nod. They have developed the underrated Remember Me and then the critically acclaimed Life is Strange. Knowing their short but stellar history is important in many ways. Vampyr is the culmination of all of their previous games, ideas, and concepts all combined into one stellar title. On the surface, many people would classify Vampyr as an action RPG. It's so much more than that once you dig a bit deeper under the surface. It's one part action game, one part narrative adventure, and one part the detective simulator everybody didn't know they wanted. You play as Jonathan Reed, a doctor just turned vampire right at the start of the game. From the moment you press play, you are thrust into a world absolutely drenched with atmosphere and style. It takes place in London during the year 1918, during the height of an epidemic with weary citizens dealing with the devastating disease during the aftermath of World War I. Everything from the game's visual style, the expressions on all the characters' faces, and even the great soundtrack with stellar violin play help sell the dark, dreary misery of the time period. People are exhausted, shell-shocked, and whatever is left is being ravaged by the Spanish flu. Right in the midst of all this chaos are the elements of the supernatural. Vampires are indeed a thing. They are called leeches or beasts. They roam London during the night and they're being hunted by vicious packs of hunters and other creatures of the night. Vampyr delves deep into vampire lore proper, with callbacks to the more grounded version of the myth, even down to vampire being the original Slavic word for vampire, and going the extra mile to poke fun at vampire cliches. You will find journals and have lengthy discussions where things like a cross will damage a vampire severely, but other cliches like garlic are laughed at and considered nonsense. In terms of your abilities, Dr. Reed can be customized in a large amount of ways. The game features an extensive upgrade system with multiple skills, passive abilities, and every single skill has its own tree that also branches in multiple ways that will affect how you use said abilities. It's a lot of fun and basically provides just enough tools to play out your vampire fantasy. Jonathan Reed is a set character with a set look, but the type of vampire you will be and the way you will manifest your abilities is up for you to determine. It's a fantastic upgrade system, and it pays so much attention to the history of vampires and how they've been used in popular media. The dialogue options, the style, and the attention paid to the lore makes Vampyr the best vampire game since the Masquerade Bloodlines and the legendary Legacy of Kain series. As an action game proper, Vampyr is merely okay. It's a standard third-person action game, but thankfully it doesn't imitate any of the Batman or Dark Souls series in regards to its combat. It has all the variety you would expect in most action games as of late. It checks all of the boxes. It has a huge list of skills, multiple weapons, all with their own styles of attack and advanced combat mechanics. It has parries, a stamina system, multiple types of upgrades for each weapon class, range and melee combat. It's all there. It's all completely functional. It just plays clunky. It doesn't have the precision required to pull off stylish combat the way your skills should allow. Between the enemy AI sometimes forgetting about you mid-fight, or the camera getting a bit awkward in close quarters, it often feels like action games from 6 years ago. Even at its best, the gameplay for the combat systems feel dated. Not that it's all bad with the combat, however. Vampyr does have its moments. One time I was level 7 and I pulled a high level creature into some vampire hunters, disappeared, and I watched them wither each other down and fight to the death. Right as the hunters were finishing off the creature, I came in for the finishing blow, collected my loot. It was super satisfying to pull that off and to watch enemy factions actually combat each other instead of all focusing on me. It was satisfying the first time I pulled it off, and it was satisfying every single time I did that all the way up to the end of the game. In addition to the dated combat, however, there are some bugs. The most alarming being very frequent crashes. While playing for review on my Xbox X, in the first 10 hours I had over several crashes that seemed completely random. I never lost a lot of progress, but it was very frustrating and it took me out of the experience more than a handful of times. The game's biggest issue, however, is a bug where oftentimes dialogue would break completely. Talking to characters would lead them to both standing there, acting out the dialogue sequence, but you're not able to hear or see the subtitles for any of the words that they're saying. Because hearing the VO or reading what they're saying matters so much in Vampyr, it would require me to hard quit out of the game and reload to get in and fix it. This bug happened to me more often than it should have, and I hope it gets patched soon because it detracted from the game's best feature. On a pure technical sense, Vampyr does the job well enough. I was playing for review on the Xbox X, and I've played some on PC. On the Xbox X, it seems like it's aiming for a 30 frames per second experience. There was some slight judder when you would turn the cameras, and every time you were kind of walking from district to district, you can feel the loads and you can feel the frame rate dip well below its target. It doesn't happen all the time, and it wasn't enough to stop me from fully completing the game and being immersed, but it's not the silky smooth experience you would expect. Absolutely recommend to play it on a PC. On my computer, it ran perfectly fine and it was smooth. That's where I would say you should definitely play it if you have a computer moderately decent. Now that we have discussed all the technical side of things and the bugs and the things that maybe not so great, let's go back to talking about what makes Vampyr so special. The best feature in the game, it's the narrative itself and how it is told. This game really emphasized the role-playing in RPG. Jonathan Reed is a doctor, but besides the irony of being a leading specialist in blood transfusion and becoming a vampire, it's how much detective work you do in this game. If you have been waiting for a Sherlock Holmes game or a Batman game where you figure out clues and do more snooping than beating up thugs, this is the perfect game for you. Vampyr is set up with 4 different districts in London, each with its own health bar, so to speak. Each one of these districts is full of people. Not a big deal on the surface, right? But unlike 99% of other video games that claim to be RPGs, every single one of them matters in a way that I have never seen in a game before. Think of the traditional RPG. In so many of them, you visit and explore massive cities with tons of characters everywhere. Most of them are just there to fill in the world and add nothing to the game outside of window dressing. In Vampyr, that entire mindset is flipped on its head. Every single NPC has a name, a backstory, and a social circle they belong to. They have things they like, hate, and are never as simple as you want or need them to be. The sheer attention to detail in each and every character is only surpassed by the excellent writing and superb voice work. Every single person you meet, from the main character you play as to a random guy down an alley just sitting around the fire, is brought to life by an absolutely top-notch performance across the board. The reason this matters so much is because the core gameplay of Vampyr is tied to every single person you meet during your adventure. Vampyr has no difficulty select. As a vampire, you need to feed. In a vampire, feeding is the fastest and the only real way to gain a lot of XP to gain new abilities and skills. Who you feed on is your choice in Vampyr. Every person you meet can become your next victim. The more people you feed on, it allows you to level up and gain access to much better skills and passive abilities. This is why the efforts into making every single character come to life matter so much. Who will you feed on? Who will you spare? It plays with morality and judging people based on a first glance to a T. This one guy stabbing a guy in an alleyway? Obvious bad guy, right? Or was he just tracking down a madman who was killing and stealing from people who were sick and couldn't help themselves? Maybe he matters. Maybe he is a close relative of a character you are trying to know more about. Each death for every NPC ripples out. It will affect other characters' moods, the status of the district they live in, and how much information you could possibly gain access to. Choose to be a merciful vampire, for example, and you will suffer the consequences. Higher level enemies will hound you. Combat will start to really push you without the aid of some of the higher level skills. The balance they pull off here is a tremendous feat, tying so much of the core gameplay around the need to feed in order to get stronger, while also making each other and every single NPC matter, is what makes this such a great detective game. I would go around for hours as Jonathan, trying to really understand people beyond the surface. Who they are, what are they into, what are their motives. It feels so authentic. Characters rarely just give you what you want, and giving them what they ask for doesn't necessarily mean they all of a sudden will open up to you like in so many other narrative-driven games. It's easily the best thing about Vampyr, and that's what pushes it so far above other games. The story, the way it's told, and how being a vampire is folded into such an extensive web of characters and district management make for a deep experience that will stay with you well after you're done experiencing any one of the multiple endings it contains. The way Don't Nod focus in on you as a gamer needing XP to get stronger and a vampire needing blood to get stronger, the analogy, while seemingly cliche on the surface, is actually pulled off so well in the core game, and you will have that tug and pull. As soon as you fight against a boss at super high level and he destroys you in 2 hits, you're going to be sitting there like, well, I want it to be really nice, but who can go? Who do I not like enough to feed on? How should I invest in people to draw the best of them so that when I feed on them, I get even more XP? It's fantastic, and it's never been done before in a vampire setting, and I feel like more than any other game ever, it captures the essence of what trying to be a vampire and live in society is like. Come for the vampires, stay for the excellent noir London detective story lying right beneath the surface. Vampyr is Don't Nod's best game yet, 4 out of 5. This game is going to stick with me long after its completion, and I easily recommend it to anybody looking for something new and exciting in the narrative adventure game genre. Vampyr feels like the next generation of adventure game, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for the future. Thank you for watching. I am Namtox. If you enjoyed the review, check out the written one at ntfgaming.com, and I'll see all of you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one, everybody.
I did not choose the thing I've become, but I can choose the lives I now take. Cursed be the choice.
They say everything you know is bound to change.